Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing. He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
How you like that, boy? You idiot.
Nation. Waldorf Nation, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. Got a great one for you. So, thank you for joining me on today's show. We're going to have some fun stories. We're going to have some disaster, as always. You know how we do. You know how we do. Just listening to that intro. Good old Pastor Manning, I tell you. I don't know what happened to that guy. I hope he didn't get a case of burning butthole. Pretty sure that sounds very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. So, you know, I hope he's got something about that. I mean, you know, you've done something about that. I hear there's screams or something. I don't know. So, anyway, if you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. I know it's a weird way to start out the show. But, you know, it is what it is. We're going to talk about Mike Pillow. We got another Pillow Talk segment, so I think you're going to enjoy that as usual. We got a Virginia Republican asking a serious question, kind of, or what he thought was a serious question about how to fight against sea level rise. You're gonna love that story. I think you're gonna enjoy it quite a bit, and also you'll learn something. Then, MAGA melts down over Superman. Fun times. We got some dangerous stuff that we're going to talk about as well. And we have a Republican that is talking about civil war, and this is now what they're talking about on the right side, the right wing side, I should say. Definitely not on the right side, not of history anyway. And then we have some new details about what happened when Donald Trump was in the Capitol during January 6th. So, you know, a lot of stuff to go over today. Fun times, fun stuff. Before I go, I just want to give just a quick mention here because we are streaming on Twitch. And so a friend of mine, Lance from the Surfs, of course, who's been on the show. I've been on his, and you know, every once in a while, I like to go in and harass him in chat. His Twitch channel got banned for talking about the Twitch leaks. So remember, there was this entire blow up about leaked information of how much Twitch streamers were making off the platform. So it got hacked because of course, Twitch's terrible security measures. And so, of course, all that information got leaked. Lance is a streamer himself on Twitch, as am I. And so he went through and he talked about it. Twitch decided to go banned. What are they going to ban everybody talking about it? What's next, Hassan? Is Hassan going to get banned? Well, I don't know. You know what? Maybe. I mean, if they're consistent, maybe, because he talked about it quite a bit on his show. And again, this isn't anything bad at Hassan. It's just like, why are they banning small Twitch streamers for talking about this? And that's the assumption, of course, that they were talking about the leaks when literally they're affected by the leaks. This is Amazon's problem. This is what Amazon's poor security led to. Why? Are you embarrassed? Is that it? Did you embarrass Daddy Bezos? Is that why you banned people on Twitch? Ridiculous. So no, and look, I think Destiny might have gotten banned for the same reason. I don't know too much about him. Let's just say that I don't agree with him from what I've heard on a lot of things. But if he got banned for the same reason, that's ridiculous. You should let them both back on the platform, because that's just news. That's what it is. These leaks are news, and it affects Twitch streamers. And by the way, it's already out there. All right, anyway. I just wanted to express my support for, some of those Twitch streamers have been banned for, again, just covering something that's happened that, yes, embarrassed the people over at Twitch. Ridiculousness. Absolute ridiculousness. So, yeah, bring back Surfs. If that's why Destiny got banned, bring him back. Bring all the people that got banned over this ridiculousness. Let them get back on the platform. So saith Waldorf Nation. If you get banned, I want my Bezos bucks back. True. I'm spending a lot of time with the Demon Mama community has informed me of every horrible thing Destiny's done. Like I said, I don't know if I'm really much of a fan of him. But again, fair being fair, even if he sucks, if he got banned for this ridiculous reason, then that's a stupid reason. That's just dumb. And you should not ban those people. Amazon needs to be destroyed. Amazon needs to be broken up. And they need to pay their goddamn taxes. How about that? All right. Anyway, let's move on. Let's go to the first story here. We're going to talk about, pillow. We got more pillow talk. All right. Mike Lindell's state-by-state embarrassment tour has landed in Wisconsin, and with it come fresh new conspiracies. Ah, yes, brand new. Which means it's time for another episode of Pillow Talk.
God gave me this platform. I already know I'm going to win.
China did our vote. Biden and Harris would say, hey, we're here to protect the country, and resign.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Just forget about the evidence. This was attacked.
So now, Wisconsin is a key battleground state that went to Donald Trump back in 2016 and barely went to Biden in 2020. It's a pretty slim margin by about 20,000 votes, give or take. So now this was a squeaker, to be sure. So now afterwards, the Trump team, since it was so close, demanded it and received a recount. Totally fair. So that recount confirmed Joe Biden's win. It actually even found more votes for both Trump and Biden. So, okay. Now, that said, Lindell, well, he's not convinced that the results were that Biden won Wisconsin. In fact, he's going to come up with this brand new theory.
I'm going to show you guys in Wisconsin, just an example, how 23,000 people, General, voted using a prison address and used the same phone number. Now, those people, and a lot of them were people we turned out as we dove into it. They're not alive anymore. They just used their names, obviously, and they don't live in Wisconsin.
Oh my God, they're living in a prison, and they don't even live in Wisconsin. It's the same address. Oh, how did you find this information, Mike? This is very important. This could be a bombshell, right? How many voters were able to do this? What prison? I mean, it seems like this could be something that could, really, change the game. Officials, you should look into it, right? Well, no, because he pulled it out of his butt. He has absolutely no evidence to suggest this won't even tell us the prison. Okay, so no, I'm going to go with that. But there's more. So now it turns out that even Steve Bannon is getting a little tired of Mike Lindell's antics. In fact, during an appearance on Real America's Voice, Bannon shut down one of Lindell's audit claims. Take a look at that.
We finally get an audit, and then Mike Lindell, it's an audit that's not good enough for Mike Lindell.
Well, they're called fraudits, Steve. They're fraudulent audits. That's what the part of the big cover-up. Now they're bringing in fraudulent, people that aren't certified.
Was Cyber Ninjas certified?
Yes, I believe they were. Yes.
I think we got to check that out. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
When you say certified, just be specific. Certified by whom and for what?
Okay, when you do an audit, the age we're living in with computers and this cyber attack, you need to be CISSP certified. I mean, you need to be certified to be able to. If you're a doctor, you need to be a doctor of that, whatever that is. If you're a brain surgeon, you need to be able to operate on brains.
Brains. I love that he says, well, are they certified? I think so. No, I'm going to have to call BS on that one. Are you sure? No. Well, I don't know. I really don't know. So to go along with this thing, his I guess analogy, yes, you do have to know something about brains to do brain surgery. It also helps to have a brain, especially when you're, I don't know, trying to make a point. You got to have a brain that appears to be functional. Something that Lindell does not seem to be in possession of. Now, as far as certifications go, Cyber Ninjas do not mention having a CISSP certification. So now, this is important, by the way, because Steve Bannon is not a stupid person. So he brings up Cyber Ninjas and their lack of a certification. That is very, very telling. Okay, because what he's saying essentially to his audience or broadcasting here is, well, they're not certified, so we shouldn't trust their audit. And then Mike Lindell's going on about fraudits. Well, then here we go. And so don't trust Cyber Ninjas, don't trust Doug Logan. They obviously did a bad audit in Arizona, which found more votes for Joe Biden. And so here we go. It didn't give them the results that they were looking for. And that's why Bannon is saying, are you sure they're, they got their certifications? Are you sure? Are you sure? I don't know. So now Lindell, by the way, we know is a stupid person. So Lindell didn't get it. And so he looks dumber, as if that's any sort of consideration to the people who believe in Mike Pillow. But, and again, there's a lot of people who do, much to the consternation of some GOP members. In fact, a while back, this is, again, a Wisconsin official talking about the calls for more recounts or more audits in Wisconsin. This is Ron Bishop, chairman for the Republican Party of Fond du Lac County, said, hopefully my fellow Republicans stop with this nonsense and begin to focus on the 2022 elections. And he said that these moves are alienating soft GOP voters who think we're nuts and wasting their tax dollars. Now, the problem with those voters, and I specifically mean the ones that are the soft GOP whatever and don't buy into the nonsense, is that they're kind of a minority in the Republican Party. In fact, the lunatics have taken over, and they are the majority. So for that, let me go to a CNN analysis. This is a poll. Now, most Republicans apparently consider support for Trump and the claim that he won the 2020 election to be an important part of their own partisan identity, alongside of support for so-called conservative principles. They say that about 6 in 10 say that supporting Trump and that believing that he won in 2020 is at least somewhat important part of what it means to be a Republican. So, okay. That means that their identity in believing in the big lie, the stolen election, all this BS, with no evidence, is part of what makes them conservative. You can't be conservative if you believe that Joe Biden won the election. Really. So understand that this is the insanity of the current Republican Party. It's basically turned into a religion now, or really, in reality, of course, a cult. And you can't reason with a cult. The only thing you could try to do is rescue people from it, and even that is not really even a guarantee. All right. Well, more on that. Go to climate change. Trump Republicans really haven't been known as being the smartest people. Oh, what are you talking about? They're the greatest people, very, very smart. No, I've said that there are two different people that surround themselves in the MAGA movement around Trump. There are dumb people, and then there are people who prey on dumb people. Now, one Virginia candidate outed himself as one of the dumb people by asking this question on Twitter. So this is a state legislative candidate in Virginia, Scott Pio, who is challenging Democratic delegate David Reed in Loudoun County's District 32. He asked this. Let me show you. I'm curious. Do you think the sea level would lower if we just took all the boats out of the water? Just a thought, not a statement. Deep. Very deep thoughts. Perhaps even ocean level deep. All right. So, no, look, bro. You should have left that one in the drafts. Not a smart question. All right. So now, why would somebody actually ask that question? I mean, when you think about it, sea level rise is a legitimate thing to talk about. In fact, it's a significant problem as it relates to climate change. One of the most destructive parts of climate change, because you have flooding of islands, you've got flooding of coastlines, entire countries. In fact, there was scientific research published last year by scientific magazine Nature Communications. And it found that by 2100, 200 million people in the world would be living below the sea level line. So unless you've got some, pretty big coastal defense against climate change, walls and things like that, well, if you're living below sea level, you would be underwater. Now, again, there are places in this world that are already below sea level and are not completely flooded out. Again, you have places like in the Netherlands, for example, that have systems where there are irrigation channels and ways that they're able to that they were able to reclaim some of the land from the ocean. That said, if it rises, it continues to rise as a result of climate change, all those efforts are going to be undone. And so that is pretty problematic, considering how big of an area you have to have 200 million people be under sea level. So big problem, right? And by the way, that's not just the 200 million. You'd also have an additional 160 million people that will be affected by higher annual flooding as a result of rising ocean levels. And so, in fact, from the study, out of the 200 million directly affected by rising sea level, researchers estimate that 70% would live in just 8 countries in Asia. Most people affected would live in China, 43 million, or about 20%. 32 million and 27 million affected people would be in Bangladesh and India. They would also be hit hard, as would be Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and Japan. Philippines and Japan, of course, being literal islands, was Indonesia. And so in Europe, the Netherlands would be theoretically the most affected. Here, more than 4 million people are expected to live below the sea level line by 2100. And so I'm not sure if I have to explain what exactly that means, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? Mass migration. You have all this land that is going to be overtaken by the ocean. Where are people going to live? People are going to move. People are going to move off these islands, or else you can't live underwater. And so you don't have a set of gills. You're not like the Kevin Costner in Waterworld. What's going on? Big water, ocean water. Thank you for that. But no, this is it's not a laughing matter, though. Ben Shapiro, just sell your house. Just sell your house and move somewhere else. That's obvious. Who are you going to sell your house to? Fish people? I mean, again, you have that problem, mass migration. You've got, of course, upheaval of food sources as well. You've got conflict, obviously, with all these people moving around, trying to escape, going into places. They're going to try to get into countries. Countries are going to close their borders. It's going to cause all sorts of different, conflicts, wars, financial disasters. I mean, just you name it. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a disaster. And so it's not good. It's not looking good. Now, obviously, the real answer here would be to go carbon neutral as quickly as possible in order to head off this, massive sea level rise. Okay? But no. Io says, just remove the boats. No boats? I wonder how much that will solve sea level rise. So now, of course, the effect of that would be, okay, if you were to stop the boats, theoretically, then what would happen to international shipping? That would be pretty economically devastating since we have a global economy. So right now, for example, there's a ton of shortages thanks to COVID. People are running out of things. International shipping has slowed down quite a bit. Think about what would happen, the shortages that you would have if all international shipping just stopped. No more boats, right? Oh, but what about planes? Look, planes can't carry the amount of goods that boats do. You'd have to have nonstop flights all the time. And again, it's just more, all the stuff that is carried through international shipping, you just can't ship it, switch it over to flights only. Absolute disaster. So no, I don't think he thought this one at all. Thought this through, okay? But I think he realized at some point that it was dumb after the fact, and was like, okay, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete it. So now I showed you the tweet because it happened to have been preserved by Blue Virginia. So Blue Virginia is a Democratic group. They picked it up. They made fun of him, which is great. Sucks for him, but it's great. He could have let it go there. But no, once people started making fun of him, he then goes, oh yeah? Double down. Double down. He said this. When you take things out of bathwater, the bathwater decreases, does it not? Got a lot of hate from your group for asking a question about taking things out of that water. Curious, when you stop believing in pure physics, I guess you don't believe in science experiments. So I always love it when people like this think that they have science on their side, right? And they're like, oh, look at that, libs. I got the science. Oh, yeah, I got science. Look at bathwater. Hey, I'm gonna take the boats out just like you're in the bath, right? Science. Well, you missed the point. So, no, the issue here is not boats. The issue is climate change. The issue is the Arctic, which this year started out being on fire. That's the issue. That is the actual science. That is the scientific consensus. Okay? You're not solving sea level rise unless you deal with climate change. So now, those of you who are wondering, why don't you just answer the question, Jeff? I mean, seriously, what would happen to sea level if you removed all the boats? All right, well, you know what? Lucky for us, somebody tackled that already. This is Randall Munroe, who is an engineer who also does a webcomic. Oh, great. So now Munroe concluded that the impact on sea levels would be, if you were to remove all human craft from the ocean, would result in a 6-micron impact on sea level. That is slightly more than the diameter of a strand of spider silk. Turns out the displacement caused by the entirety of humanity and all of our sea craft and all of our shipping and everything amounts to a literal microscopic drop in the ocean. And this shouldn't be a surprise. The ocean makes up like 70% of our planet. We barely even explored it, much less charted it. And look, more astounding facts. The ocean is 321,003,271 cubic miles. Oh, that's a lot. A lot of miles. It has a total of 352 quintillion gallons of water. Now, when you think about that, it gives you a different perspective, right? When you think of how big and how vast it is. And sometimes people can come to the wrong conclusion that, well, if it's so big, how can we affect it? If the Earth is so big, how are we affecting this at all? But we are. And that's the issue behind climate change. Our emissions of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases from fossil fuels has a tremendous effect, not just on the land and the air, but also in the ocean. Well, you have coral bleaching. You have dead spots in the ocean where there is no longer any oxygen. That's why you have oxygen acidification. A tremendous effect. So, in fact, Munroe wrote that the oceans are currently rising at about 3.3 millimeters per year due to global warming through both glacial melting and the thermal expansion of seawater. At that rate, normalized for seasonal variation and short-term fluctuations, if you removed every ship from the ocean, the water would be back up to its original average level in about 16 hours. Well, that's depressing. One more thing. This is a statement from Blue Virginia. Here's what they wrote about this. They said that the scary thing is that this guy is not an outlier for today's Republican Party. The party of Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Bob Good, Ken Cuccinelli, Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, Jason Mayares, etc., which means, of course, that we better not let these people take power, here in Virginia or nationally, until their entire party fundamentally changes back to sanity and actual conservative principles, not extremist lunacy. So now there's a couple of things, I have some thoughts about that statement. Well, I tend to generally agree that we should not let these people back into power. The Republican Party, understand, is not going to ever return back to sanity because they never believed in sanity to begin with. You see, they've never believed in doing anything about climate change because it's not about facts. Facts don't matter. It's about the monies from fossil fuels. Getting them back to quote unquote sanity isn't going to do a damn thing, because it's not about that. Not only that, but we also have a Democratic Party with people like Joe Manchin, Henry Cuellar, Lizzie Fletcher, Vicente Gonzalez, and Mark Veazey, and among others. Now, all of those people, according to OpenSecrets.com, are among the top recipients of oil and gas donations. And of course, unsurprisingly, most of these Democrats, with the exception of Joe Manchin, are in Texas, where there is, of course, a booming oil and gas industry. And then, as I said, West Virginia. Look, Joe Manchin, he owns, he has a stake. Let's just say this. He has investments in Enersystems, which basically burns waste coal for energy, which, of course, is very, very bad for the environment. He gets double his congressional salary from burning that coal. And he is the top recipient out of all of those other, both Republicans and Democrats, of money from oil and gas. Gee, I wonder why. So now my point is, while people like Io might be stupid, the other half of the problem isn't addressed, and that is corruption. You have a massive system where you have these corporations and these industry groups that go in and buy politicians. And that's it. They go in, they buy our politicians, and big surprise, the politicians will then legislate favorably for that industry and for that industry group. Even if it means sea level rise, even if it means the destruction of your home, even if it means that you don't get health care, it doesn't matter. Our system has been captured by the monies, and that's what we have to remove. All right. Go to something less apocalyptic and more ridiculous. Conservatives are once again melting down over comic book characters, this time involving Superman. So now, according to two pro-MAGA politicians, the left is using the Man of Steel to destroy America. So now first, we've got Arizona State Senator Wendy Rogers. Here's what she tweeted out. Superman loves Lois Lane, period. Hollywood is trying to make Superman gay, and he is not. Just rename the new version Superman so we can all know the difference and avoid seeing it. All right, so wait a minute here. So on the one hand, you're saying they want the Hollywood apparently wants Superman to be gay, but he isn't, but obviously is in love with Lois Lane. Well, who's Lois Lane? I know Lois Lane, but who's Lois? Interesting. No, of course. This is why spelling matters, everyone. We all know, again, that it was referring to Lois Lane, obviously. But there's another point with that. I'll get to that in a minute. But she then goes on and, of course, uses a stereotypical slur against the gay community by doing the whole Superman thing, right? So now, that's not true, for one. Highly offensive. I don't think I've ever met an actual gay person who speaks with a lisp. And it's quite obvious that Wendy Rogers has also never met an actual gay person. But that's not even the dumbest part of this entire thing. So, first off, this is not even Superman. The new Superman is not Clark Kent, but rather John Kent, the son of Lois and Clark, who happens to not be gay, but bisexual. So that's important too. So for him to love Lewis or Lois Lane, in this case, again, grammar, very important. And by the way, let's go back to the tweet here for a second. Gets Lois's name wrong, but manages to capitalize, to go out of her way to capitalize the T on Superman. Weird attention to detail. So, but okay, now going back to that, him loving Lois Lane in that context would be, again, his mother would be a little weird, a little strange. But anyway, this is another example of a reactionary being reactionary for the sake of being reactionary, and that's what this is. This is, hey, an example of tell me you're not a comic book fan without actually telling me you're not a comic book fan. She has no idea what's going on. Doesn't matter. And look, she wasn't going to read it anyway. She never read it before. She probably doesn't read comics or enjoy comics or anything like that. So then, if you're not going to read it and never planned on reading it and never read it before, then why does it matter to you? Who cares? Who cares? Nobody cares. If you don't like it, don't read it. Shut up about it. Just shut up about it. It is very, very simple. However, she's not the only one. You also have Ohio MAGA candidate Josh Mandel, the guy who pulled over into some random cornfield to do a thing about Trump. Here's what he tweeted. Bisexual comic books for kids? Well, at least he got the bisexual part right. They're literally trying to destroy America. What? So now here's the thing, okay? Again, gay and bisexual people, trans people, non-binary, etc., they've all existed throughout the entirety of human history. All they want to do is literally just exist. They don't want to destroy anything. Now, if that causes you, Josh, such a gigantic problem, then maybe you might want to look inward to see why the problem is there inside you. Because you are the problem. They're not the problem. They're trying to live their lives. You're the problem. And look, okay, here's some thought, right? Some deep thoughts, if you will. Okay, so I've kind of noticed that this happens a lot on the religious right? The religious far right, the right-wing evangelicals, they believe in this weird kind of interpretation of religion. Okay, a lot of these people want to believe that God created everything and God created everything perfect. Now, I don't believe in God, but many people do. And look, there are Christians on the left, religious people, and they look at this as, yes, God created everything perfectly, including gay people, including trans people. They're perfect the way that they are. And if you have that, view, well, wonderful. God bless, right? Great. Now, on the right, however, they don't see it that way. They see them as fundamentally ungodly, broken, imperfect, as they see the rest of humanity, right? So they can't seem to understand how God could create something like a gay person. Oh my God, no. So instead, they come up with weirdo stuff like, well, obviously they chose to be gay. So now, ask any gay or trans person when they chose that. And they're probably going to say something like either, I didn't, or, well, I chose that the same way you chose to be straight. Except that, of course, it never happened. I never chose to be a white, cisgendered, straight male. Nobody chooses that. Okay? Gay is not a choice. You're gay whether you're out or not. You're trans whether you've accepted it or not. If you feel that way inside. Non-binary, these are not choices that people are making. All right? And so the choice they make is whether or not to embrace themselves openly as who they are. That's where the actual choice is. Right? So, you know, that's why we say there are people that are in the closet, there are people that are out and that are proud. That's why, of course, it was so important for example, celebrities. People like celebrities. I don't know why, but I'm not a huge celebrity fan, but people will look at a celebrity that comes out and be like, oh, wonderful, because it sets an example, right? And it makes it society a little bit more accepting for people to be who they are and to make those choices in coming out. Okay? So now that's what these pop culture changes are ultimately doing, making things a little bit more comfortable in society for people who are, you know, non-binary, gay, and you know, trans and all that, to be able to come out and to just be themselves, right? In fact, on the same day that this was announced, Linda Carter, known as her portrayal of Wonder Woman, tweeted this: "Whether you're out and proud or now, or you're still living with a secret identity, you're a superhero in my eyes." So I actually love that message. It's a very positive message. And so, you know, I like that, because it says, hey, you know, you're valid. Even if you're, you know, too afraid to come out, that's okay. You're valid who you are. So now back to the religious right for a second. So either they don't understand or refuse to understand, or maybe they're just lying about them, you know, lying to themselves about certain things because of the religious or cultural shame, right? So there's religion and there's culture that teaches people who are different to be shamed. Okay? So be ashamed of who you are. We're not going to give you any support. All that. Now, this is why it's important for culture to be more accepting of other people so that they can be themselves. And so I think that this is a very positive thing. I think it's good. So this is kind of why it matters, to make society a little bit more of an accepting place. But Josh Mandel doesn't agree. Wendy Rogers doesn't agree. And what they're doing is reactionary politics. And understand, too, that especially when it comes to pop culture things like comics, like video games or movies and things like that, well, there is a cottage industry that has been built up around reactionary politics, right? So that reactionary group is a small group, but they're very, very loud. They're very, very vocal, okay? And so you've got these people out there that cater to that group. However, and it seems like it's a large amount of people, but again, the arc of history always tends to bend towards justice, which ultimately, this is what our superheroes really stand for. They're supposed to stand for, good. They're supposed to stand for justice, literal Justice League. Okay. So that said, people like, Mandel, they're on the side of Lex Luthor. They're on the side of General Zod. They're on the bad side. Okay. And so go ahead and be on that side if that's what you want to be. But just know that you and your bigotry, just like the villains are defeated, you're going to be defeated as well. All right. Moving on. Donald Trump is back to doing rallies. On Saturday, Trump supporters gathered in Des Moines, Iowa, to listen to the former twice-impeached president complain, and MSNBC decided to be there. So now reporter Gary Grumbach interviewed some of his supporters, including one woman who told him that a new civil war was coming. Here's that.
I think the Republicans are about as weak as they possibly could be in Congress. You have maybe 6 that are worth their salt. Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, and 2 or 3 others. The rest of them are just the same as the Democrats. They've been there too long. They're establishment. They don't care about the American people because they're in their elite little tower. And so we're just sick of it, you know, and we're not gonna take it anymore. I see a civil war coming. I do. I see civil war coming.
A civil war coming. That's what she said, and that's the sentiment that we're hearing from a number of people on the ground here at today's Trump rally.
All right, so now understand that that's disturbing. Like, literally talking about a civil war. She ain't the only one. So now, in her rant, she actually does talk about or touch on something that is true. Okay, so now the Republican establishment actually does sit in an ivory tower. They actually don't care about the American people. She's right about that, and it's the same with most Democrats, I would say, part of the Democratic Party. And so, it's not necessarily just because they're bad people, although you could certainly say that there are some bad people out there, members of both parties. I can think of Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and think of a lot of Republicans, more than we can name. But in reality, the real issue here is the system. Okay, and that enables these bad people to be in positions of power. And so big corporations, they buy our congressmen to serve them and not us. They think they need that money for re-election, which of course ends up in the pockets of the media, political consultants, and that gets used for ads. And so in reality, it's the system that's broken. It's the system that's dividing us. And so in reality, of course, when you look, she's fighting the wrong enemy. And that's the thing. The real problem here is greed. The real problem here is money in politics. The real problem here is corruption. And so understand, I get that frustration. I do. That frustration, which is a very, very real frustration felt by a lot of Americans. Unfortunately, this has been weaponized by the right wing. They have a lot of the money. They have a lot of the reach. They have a lot of the messaging. And so they have a massive media complex. And they have used that instead of directing the blame at the system, instead of directing the blame at, wealthy corporations, etc. They instead use immigrants as scapegoats, gay people, Democrats, abortions, etc. But we know that the owner donors are really running the show. And they're running us all into the ground in the name of corporate profits. So now the only people that I do see fighting against that on the national level are a few Democrats, a few progressives. There are some conservatives, at least at the state level, that do see the problem with money in politics and want to remove it as well. And of course, there's a lot of voters out there that think, yeah, the problem is corruption. Unfortunately, those voters don't tend to be in places of power. And so, as I said, most of the rest of the Republican Party easily corrupted by, entirely corrupted by big business. And the rest, unfortunately, are conspiracy theorists that are in power. And some of them are, of course, both. Let's look at Ted Cruz for a second, right? Ted Cruz is deeply slimy. Ted Cruz took money from Goldman Sachs, the oil and gas industry, and is about as fake as you could be. While his state froze, this guy ran to Cancun. So, and during the 2016 primary, remember when Ted Cruz was talking tough? He was, I'm never going to support Trump, never going to support people like that. Well, he talked tough until the Mercers, his owner donors, called up, and then suddenly he was phone banking for a man that calls his wife ugly. That's what happened. And so he doesn't care about the American people. Neither does Donald Trump. They are serving the donors and themselves as well. And so I understand, like, okay, you're thinking, why are you validating something that she says? She's obviously crazy because she's saying that there's going to be a civil war. But that's the rhetoric that's going on in the right wing right now, okay? And there are parts of her grievances that do make sense. The fact that you do have this system that only favors the rich and corporations over actual human beings. And this is why we can't have, healthcare for every single person, despite the fact that it's incredibly popular. That's why we don't have higher wages for regular working people. That's why we don't have things like sick leave, etc. That all these things that are incredibly popular with both Democrats and Republicans, people across and independents across all the political spectrum, these are things that we can't have because of the money and because of our system. And so we have that. But now, again, those are valid, but the idea of civil war is not valid. I think it's insane. And of course, the reason that they bring this up is they think that they're literally in a cult. They've been brainwashed into a cult. About 6 in 10 Republicans think believing in Donald Trump's big lie is important to their identity as a conservative. And nearly half of them think that American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save the United States. Save the United States. From who? Who are they saving it from? 23% of Republicans say that America's been taken over by a cabal of devil-worshipping pedophiles who literally eat children. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. 28% of Republicans think that there's a storm coming that will go and remove those people and install the right leaders. The right leaders. This is not something that is insignificant. This is not a belief that is insignificant. If you're in this cult, like she is, you literally believe that you are out there fighting Satan. And so, of course, for you, civil war, oh yeah, well, I'm on the side that's fighting Satan. The number of QAnon followers who have committed ideologically motivated crimes in the U.S. stands at least 79, 40 of whom were at the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. So now, the other thing is, they talk about civil war, right? Civil war, civil war, civil war. Right? Tim Pool talks about it constantly in his show. I think there's a civil war coming. But understand that what that actually looks like, it's not going to be North versus South, the Mason-Dixon line, and the generals going down to Richmond. No, that's not going to be it. What it's going to end up being, if something like this happens, is a handful of extremists doing increasing numbers of stochastic terrorist attacks. Things like attacking synagogues, attacking gay and trans people, blowing up abortion clinics. And these are things that have already been happening. What will likely, if these people are super serious and continue to be egged on and pushed into the cult of Trump, will continue to do these in increasing numbers. And of course, it's not just people on the ground too. It's members of Congress that will strip voting rights, which they're already doing. They'll take control that way. And they'll use, the threats of stochastic terrorism to scare the vast majority of the rest of us into accepting what is essentially, minority conservative rule, their status quo. That is a dangerous situation. And so, obviously, we have to fight back. Now, first, of course, we fight back by actually knowing what's going on and knowing how exactly they're going to try to do this. The other part, of course, is to use means, legal means, peaceful means, etc., to fight back against it, to prevent those people from getting into power, from using all the resources that we have available as citizens to be able to fight back against that and use the electoral power to prevent that from happening. And if it happens to get to a point where that is not enough, well, then I get very, very concerned about what could happen afterwards. Let's hope we can stop it before that. All right. One more quick thing before we go, kind of related to this. If it's one thing that former President Trump is obsessed with, it's crowd sizes. We saw that during his inauguration. Sean Spicer saying, I have the biggest crowd ever. Biggest crowd in the world for any inauguration, period. So now, crowd size. Well, it turns out that Donald Trump was also impressed with the crowd size on January 6th. You know, the same crowd that then went to go and attack the Capitol on that day. So now, what was going on when that in the White House when this was going on? What was happening? What was Donald Trump doing? Well, it turns out he was watching and cheering from the sidelines. In fact, according to a new book, Trump watched on a television in the White House private dining room as the mob of his supporters stormed the Capitol while chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." This is according to ABC News chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl in the new book, Betrayal, the final act of the Trump show. He reportedly enjoyed, Trump did, what he saw and argued with aides who wanted him to put out a message to his supporters to stop rioting. So now think about that. This guy's watching on TV this entire thing unfold. People fighting with cops and breaking into the building, breaking glass and chanting about, hanging the vice president. And he's like, oh, goody, I love this. This is wonderful. Yeah, let's watch. No, stop writing. Why would I want them to stop? I wouldn't want to stop. No, of course not. Keep them going. Keep them going. In fact, his aides eventually get him to try to stop. But it took several. You all remember the tape of him, trying to tell the rioters, go home. I love you. You're very special. Turns out that took several takes to get right. In fact, an aide who was present said Trump had to tape the message several times before they thought he got it right. That's not the only disturbing thing. Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy had also spoke to Mr. Trump during the riot and told him, I just got evacuated from the Capitol. There were shots fired right off the House floor. You need to make this stop. Now, it's the same Kevin McCarthy, which, by the way, who now downplays this entire thing. But when it was happening, he was like, oh my God, are there shots going on? Shots. Oh my God, I gotta get out of here. Donald Trump, save me. But Trump, according to a source familiar with the call, responded by saying, they're just more upset than you because they believe it more than you do, Evan. He had absolutely no problem. He knew what was going on. Again, they planned what was going on. Steve Bannon, of course, was there. Had helped plan this entire thing. He knew what was going to happen. And he was cheering it on, eating hamburgers, drinking Diet Coke inside the White House and watching the crowd. He wasn't in any danger. Of course not. Watch with glee. I mean, holy shit. So, and again, this is while his vice president was being threatened, which he didn't give a damn about. Mike Pence, I barely know him, coffee boy. What are you talking about? Disgruntled aide. Yeah, wouldn't do the election for me. Wouldn't change the election. Certification. You realize he didn't actually have the power to do that, right? He actually didn't have the power. There's no constitutional vehicle for doing that. This is a ceremonial thing. All the states have already certified the election results. And so all he did was just, repeated what the states said. Oh, all these are certified. Great. He didn't actually have the power to say, no, we can't do that. No, we're not going to certify the election. Therefore, Donald Trump is still president. Which would mean that, of course, if that's true, if the vice president has that power, then are you saying that Kamala Harris can then just appoint whatever president she wants? That's weird because knowing Kamala Harris, wouldn't she appoint herself? Again, they have no idea what they're talking about. No idea at all. And yet they still believe this stuff. It's ridiculous. And again, he didn't care at all if they had gotten their hands on Pence. I mean, imagine if that had happened. Doesn't care at all. Doesn't give a goddamn. And by the way, the only people he did care about are people that served him. For example, he recently sent out birthday wishes to Ashley Babbitt. Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed while breaking into the Capitol. Now, I don't like the fact that she was shot and killed. That sucks. But if you looked at her social media leading up to the riot, you kind of knew what she was signing up for. And I hate to say it, but it feels like she martyred herself for Trump. And that's sad. And again, I feel bad for her in that regard, because you had somebody who, and again, you look at some of the stuff that she's went through, you know, that she's been through in her life, the difficulties and things like that. And I guess you could understand how somebody that could be radicalized, but then to throw your life away for Trump, I mean, that's just the ultimate, you know, just terrible ending. Terrible ending. And yet Trump saw this, was like, yes, yes. Yeah, well, I want to see more of it. Everything for me. You all martyr yourself for me. Yeah. Because he doesn't give a damn about anyone except for himself. He said he'd walk with them, and like any autocrat, went back to his bunker to watch it all unfold, because he's a coward. Wasn't willing to put himself on the line, of course. But his followers, well, his followers are fodder. They're expendable. And he says, look how many there are. Like a big crowd, greatest crowd. Now, I said that the main danger of this man is how he can inspire others to do violence on his behalf. And he knows that he can inspire people. He knows that he can say anything, and there's no consequences for him. What consequences has he seen? Any? No. What about the Capitol rioters? I've been talking about how the Capitol rioters have been, you know, in court cases, and basically have all had a slap on the wrist. They've all been able to plead down to, okay, fines, house arrest, or slap on the wrist a couple of months, and that's it. No consequences. Incredibly light sentences. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. No, they're going to do it again. God forbid this man get back into power, because it will get worse. Things will get worse. They're going to escalate. And once again, cable news is still calling things 50-50 and not actually talking about the real threat, and letting Republican congressmen make excuses and still deny that, you know, that there was a coup, that, or even deny that the election was fair and that there was no real pushback. That's a problem. And the fact that he's able to run again, and just might in 2024, is already doing rallies. It's incredibly dangerous. And what's even worse is if he gets a Republican Congress. So this is very, very concerning to me, and should be concerning to all of you. This guy and his hold over people and the cult-like devotion that they have to him. I'm worried. Very worried. Okay. Oh, that's it. I gotta go. Regular Mole Rat Dragon, thank you for the bits. I appreciate it. Please like and share the stream already. I mean, if you haven't already, I'll read super chats tomorrow, but I gotta get going. I've got a meeting that I'm like a couple of minutes late for. So thank you all. I appreciate you all watching. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Wet ass keyword.
Big massive dumps.
Mike Pence.
Amazing.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.